Hey y'all, it's Cindy Cobb with Around the Town in the South, and I am so excited to be sitting here with one of my high school friends, Clintonian Ricky Flynt, who is with the Mississippi Wildlife Parks and Fisheries.
Wildlife Fisheries and Parks.
Thank you. I knew I was going to get that wrong because I forget about the parks. I think about the fisheries. Anyway, when I came up with this idea, I wanted to be able to showcase things of my interest, things that I've grown up learning about and listening to. And one of them is alligators. I've told stories for years about alligators, including the one that happened up here at the river about 7 years ago. My brother and sister-in-law were out here. We're on Flag Island, and it was about 7:30 that night. It was getting dusky. We were ready to go in. My brother was not. My brother sits on the side of his boat, and he's talking, and his legs are in the water. I'm over here, in the sand. We're trying to load everything up, and a baby alligator about this long strolls up between the boats and strolls up onto the sandbar. He never touched us, never tried to bite us, never did anything. And so as I'm thinking about when Ricky's telling me these stories about they're more fearful of us, they don't attack unless you've been feeding them and they're hungry, and there's things that he'll talk about with that in a few minutes. But I thought to myself as we were riding out here, that alligator didn't bother anyone. And it was a baby, but I knew that mama was probably somewhere around, so we didn't go near it. We got our stuff and got in that boat and got home because this is their territory, in my opinion. This is their domain. And when you go in somebody else's domain, you put yourself in their territory. It's outside of the norm for anyone to be in their territory. So in saying that, that's just one of my alligator stories, and it was so much fun. Hey, Glenda. But I'm so excited to be sitting here. So, Ricky, I've known you for a long time, and I love watching you on Facebook. I've watched you with your, I didn't realize it's been 25 years, but I've watched you with your passions with these alligators. I've watched you with kids, and, just this last Saturday you had something out at the Gator Archery outdoors, and you had your little alligators, and kids were petting them. The fascination, there has to be some kind of story behind the fascination with alligators. So let's just lead into that.
Well, you and I came up around the same era back in the 70s. And if you remember, there was a program that used to come on Saturday nights called Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom.
Yes.
All right. That was a show that as a kid, I made sure that we were home so Ricky and his big brother Greg could watch Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. And it may sound funny, it may sound silly, but as a kid, I was extremely interested in what I was seeing going on in that program with Marlon Perkins and Jim going out and dealing with all these wildlife, all across the world, and some of it very dangerous situations. And I was very interested in that, and that was something that captivated me as a kid. And as I grew older and got into high school and stuff, when you're in high school and you become a junior and then a senior, people are pushing you about, what are you going to do when you graduate from high school? Are you going to college? Well, I can be honest, I really didn't have those aspirations yet. I wasn't thinking. Of course, back then it was more about having fun.
Yes, of course.
And we had fun. But as I got into my senior year, I started trying to think about college and what would I want to do. And I started researching some things, and then I realized, there's a field out there that people study dealing with wildlife, and wildlife biologists and forestry. I always had an interest in everything that had to do with the woods and the outdoors as a kid. My mom and dad took us camping from the time I was 6 weeks old. We went camping every month, and always dealing with trees and the woods and streams and lakes and rivers and things. And so I had that interest, and when I found out there was actually a field that I could go into and make a career, I became interested in that. And so I pursued getting a degree from Mississippi State University in forestry and wildlife management. And Yeah, Hail State. um, Looking forward to this year's football season. But anyway, I graduated from Mississippi State University. I worked in a co-op program while I was there doing wild turkey research, and from that time till now, I've spent just tons and tons of hours of my time dealing with all different kinds of species, game animals, non-game animals, and it has been a tremendous career. Have I become rich and able to throw money around everywhere I want to? No, but it's been a very rewarding career, and part of that, when I was hired with the Department of Wildlife Fisheries and Parks, was to also be a sworn law enforcement officer, and so I've been involved with that, and I'm very passionate about that side of it as well.
That is awesome. I love to hear stories, when you're a kid, what you're passionate about, what you love. And, if you look at your life and everything that's evolved, it's brought you here 25 years later, which is, it's amazing in itself. Most people don't get to do what they want to do for 25 years. And like you say, if you're doing the passion, God has provided a very good life for you. Doesn't matter your riches are in your heart.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that and hear that as he's driving me up on this airboat, which is freaking amazing, let me just say. And it's just almost, you feel the presence of God, number one, and it almost brings tears to your eyes. But then when we stop and you're telling me the stories, he's shown me a couple of the alligator nests, and we're going to talk about the alligator hunt in a few minutes. You could hear the passion and the love that he has for these alligators. This is not something that he understands. That this is a protected, he protects these species out here. He knows exactly what they're doing and where they're doing it, and as he's telling me these stories, I can hear your love. I can hear the reward that you have for what you do.
Right.
For us in the state, and learning more about what we need to know about, educating us as you learn more. So let's lead into that just for a few minutes. I want to talk a little bit about the alligator hunt. Not only does Mississippi have it, I know Alabama has it. One of my good friend's son, Brad, got the tag, and he got him a couple of pretty good alligators over the last couple of years. And I want to talk about the process of why we have the hunt. How do you get a tag to be able to participate in the hunt?
Mm-hmm. Well, you kind of have to start back with a lot of the history about alligators. Most people think of alligators as an endangered species, which alligators were indeed on the endangered species list. They were put on the endangered species list in 1967. And the problem that existed there was, when we got into the early 1900s, 1930s, 40s, and 50s, there were very few laws and regulations to protect wildlife. And as a result, some species were hunted to near extirpation. And alligators were one of those. And because alligator hides became very demanding in the commercial markets, alligators were hunted to the point that they were endangered of existing any longer. And so they were put on that endangered species list in 1967, all across its range, which they only exist in the southeastern United States. And after about 20 years, with that protection, most of the alligator populations across the southeast were able to rebound. And they were taken off the endangered species list in 1987, not long after we graduated from high school. And so that afforded some states that wished to pursue alligator hunting seasons, very limited and very regulated. Mississippi, we did not enter into the public alligator hunting until 2005. Like you say, I've been working with the agency for 25 years. I've worked on wildlife management areas since I first started in 1993. And in 2003, I was afforded the opportunity to move into the alligator program. There was a position that had been vacant for about 2.5 years. And I was living in Columbus at the time as an associate biologist with this agency, and was offered the opportunity to take that position in 2003, and I did. And I can honestly say that it is probably the best move I've ever made. I've never enjoyed working with a species more than I do alligators. And one of the first things I was charged with after I got my feet on the ground was to try and develop an alligator hunting season for the state of Mississippi. And I started doing that. I started researching, looking at what other states were doing, particularly Louisiana and Florida, which are the two main states where the majority of alligators are found. And looking at the way their system was set up, I knew it wasn't a good fit for Mississippi. And so I was trying to think of ideas, and I kind of had some ideas, but hadn't really put it all together yet. And another part of my job is working with fur bearers. Fur bearers are those animals that are caught for their fur, animals that we trap and go into the fur market. And so I deal with those as well. And I was going to a regional meeting that was being held in Louisiana in 2004. And it just so happened that the guy who developed Georgia's alligator hunting season was there, and he gave a presentation that week and about Georgia's first alligator hunting season in 2003. And as I watched his presentation, I said, this is it. He kind of bridged me over the gap to what I thought was a good fit for Mississippi. And, you know, as wildlife biologists, a lot of people think that all we do is work right here where we're located. And just like in the private world, in the private sector, people network with people all over in their line of work and all around the country, and they learn things. And so we as biologists, most occasionally, around every year or so, get together at different conferences and things and learn these types of things. We get presentations about what other states are doing and the most recent research on different species and things that are learned. And so I was able to benefit from that, from what Georgia had done. And I got to sit down and talk with him, and then I came back and basically put a proposal together in early 2005. Presented it to our commission, to our director, and it was approved for our first alligator hunting season right here on the Pearl River.
Oh, wow.
In 2005. We opened up a 13-mile stretch of the river, kind of as a pilot hunting season, just to put it out there and test the waters and see how it would go. Long story short, we started out with 50 permits the first year. In 2005, it has now grown to 930 permits that we offer, and it's statewide on public waters. And so what we did from 2005 to basically 2013, every year we kind of assessed what had happened during the previous year's hunting season and made some adjustments and changes along the way. We do a very limited draw hunt. And I guess I should probably talk a little bit about that. People wonder why we don't just have an open hunting season. Why can't you just go buy a license and everybody go kill an alligator like you do a deer or a rabbit or a squirrel and turkey and things like that? And it is because alligators are still protected under the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Endangered Species Act. Even though they're not endangered, they have a very close resemblance to other crocodilians across the world that are endangered. And because these commercial products make it to ports to be imported, exported in and out of countries, in order for them to be identified as to exactly what species that hide is,
right.
That it came from a state or there's an actual species that is not endangered anymore. Because of that, there's still federal regulations, even international regulations about harvest of these alligators. And so we have to account for every alligator that is harvested that has potential to enter into the international market. And that way, we must have 100% reporting. We must have 100% tagging available for every one of those animals. Must be tagged so that if it does enter into the commercial market, when it gets there to a port, it can be identified as an American alligator that was legally harvested.
Oh, wow.
There's a lot of black market interest out there that are affecting wildlife all across this world. And some people ask, well, why don't you offer more permits? Alligator biology is so much different than your typical mammal. For instance, a deer is born this summer. A year from now, that about 30% of those deer that are born this summer, the does, potentially could become pregnant and introduce more animals back into the population. Most mammals can do that within a year to 16 months of age. With alligators, it's much different. Alligators are not sexually mature for probably anywhere from 9 to 15 years.
Wow.
And as I was showing you out here today with these alligator nests, only about 10% of the alligators that successfully hatch from these nests will ever make it to adulthood. And the vast majority of these nests, probably 40 to 50% of these nests, do not produce every year. So the biology is much different. And so we have to be very careful. And we, as a conservation agency, have decided to err on the side of conservation rather than getting back into a situation like we were in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s where alligators were becoming endangered because they were being overhunted. We want to provide an opportunity for people to safely go out and have a sport hunt for a species that's available out there on a limited basis. And so that's the premise of the alligator hunting season, is that we have a population that has rebounded to the point that it can withstand some limited regulated harvest. And the whole process is built in place so that everything's documented and everything can be legally done to satisfy all these agreements that are international.
Listen to everything that you're saying. There's so much red tape that we don't understand. And some people look from the outside in wondering all these questions. And I love when I'm doing these vlogs, I get educated. And we need to be educated in things like this, especially if it's our world. So in saying that, when is the season for the alligator hunt?
Okay. The actual alligator season, like this year, will start a week from Friday.
Oh, wow.
Just a little more than a week away.
September 7th.
Yep, a week and a day, actually. So August 31st, the alligator hunting season will open here in Mississippi on all the public waterways in the state. The season is set up to open every last Friday in August. So that's always the opening day, the last Friday in August. 31st. And it goes for 10 days. We have a process where people can go online during the first week of June to our agency's website and basically buy an application. It costs you about $2.35. And that basically pays for the electronic processing. And people can select which zone of the state they wish to hunt and put an application in. Then in the middle of June, the agency has a outside agency that does a drawing for us, and they give us the results of the drawing, who those winners are, and then they send out an email to each of those winners, and it lets them know that they've been drawn for a hunt, and they have 48 hours to purchase their permit. If they do not purchase their permit within those 48 hours, then that permit is retained over for a second drawing. There's 930 permits allowed statewide and within those 7 different zones in the state.
Right.
Some zones offer, like this here zone, the Pearl River Ross Barnett zone, we offer 80 permits. We have some other zones that offers as much as 180.
Wow.
And so after 48 hours, every permit that was not drawn goes back into another opportunity for another drawing, and then we'll draw again, and then they get an email, and they also have 48 hours to buy those permits. But it winds up, we sell like 99% of all the permits.
Yeah, of course.
And which is very good. Those permits cost $225 basically for each person that buys those. And then they, in turn, are allowed to bring as many people as they wish that their boat will safely carry and come along with them and go hunt. So
that was my next question. How many, I may get a permit and I may have my boat. So, and I've watched swamp people. So I
You use that word. I hate swamp people.
Well, I mean, I've watched them hunt and get them in the boat, and they usually have 2 to 3 in the boat. And that's usually, it looks to me like it'd be a comfortable amount. to help with alligator. I don't know. I mean, I don't think I could do it. Just fear that the bullet when it went through there would pop and ricochet me. I have all these visions of things that could happen. So in saying that, in the boat they can fit as many as they can legally or comfortably.
Well, no. And first, let's say this: everything that you see on Swamp People, do not equate it to what is legal to do in the state of Mississippi, because it is not.
And you will go to jail.
Yeah, we have a unique set of laws and regulations that are not typically depicted in Swamp People.
And that is a TV show, y'all, so just understand that too.
It is. So everyone that gets a permit, they're allowed to harvest 2 alligators. They have to be at least 4 feet long, and only one of those can exceed 7 feet. And so what that does is it distributes the harvest of alligators. That about half of them are juvenile alligators and about half of them are adult breeding age alligators. So it puts less pressure on those larger adult alligators, another part of conservation. The hunting party basically is limited by the vessel that they're in and what the legal capacity of that boat is.
Gotcha.
Boats have a capacity plate on it that says, you can take 4 people, gear and motor and all that kind of stuff. And so on average, the hunting parties will be about 3 to 4 people in those hunting parties, and everybody buys an alligator hunting license to go along with that permit holder. And for each permit, they're allowed to kill 2 alligators.
Wow.
And the harvest annually for the last 3 or 4 years has been anywhere from about 750 to 900 alligators being harvested statewide.
So during that 10 days, if I were to get a tag, and y'all better pray I don't, but if I were to get a tag, I can hunt any time of the 10 days and get my 2.
Right.
Day and night, no matter what time.
Right.
And on the Ross Barnett Reservoir, which is where we are, we're upriver. As we're driving through, I know they can't go where we were. Is that right?
Most of them can't. Yeah.
Okay, unless
the airboat affords you the opportunity to go to some areas that most traditional boats can't go with an outboard. But most of the people will move up and down along the main river and then branch out into more still water looking for the alligators, which is where most of them are going to be found. And they're basically attempting to throw a treble hook over the back of an alligator, retrieve it, snag the alligator, and reel it in like a big fish. And once they get the alligator to the boat, they're allowed to put a snare or a noose over the alligator's head. And once the alligator is restrained, then they're allowed to kill it.
Gotcha.
We do not allow people, and that was one of my things that I was trying to tackle when I was developing our season was, we don't want to allow people to just go out here and shoot a rifle or any kind of gun out across these public waters where everybody else is recreating. You got people out here fishing, you got people out here water skiing, camping, everything.
Kayaking, we just passed some
Right.
kayakers.
So we require them to have it legal restrained. It's basically right here within a hand's reach, safely secured on a snare and a rope that the alligator cannot get away.
Mm-hmm.
And then they are allowed to take a shoulder-fired shotgun with the proper ammunition and dispatch the alligator at point-blank range, safely, humanely euthanize the alligator. And it makes it very safe. And, since 2005, I don't know how many, I guess in the last few years, we're probably averaging about 3,000, 3,500 people involved in alligator hunting every year. So you do the math, it's, tens of thousands of people now have been involved in alligator hunting. And we've had very few instances where people were injured. We credit a lot of that to the fact that we have developed an alligator hunting training course. For the first 10 years, it was a mandatory course for everyone that got a permit. You had to come to one of our training courses. And from 2005 to 2013, I trained over 5,000 people in good, safe hunting for alligators in the state of Mississippi. And we think that has been a lot of the credit to the safety of it. People are networking with these permits, you talk about if I get a permit. People have friends and family that all are interested in alligator hunting, and what they do is they put in a permit in hopes that someone in the group will get drawn. And you asked about what's the chances of getting drawn. In some of these zones, depending on the number of people that apply, the odds are anywhere from 1 in 8 to maybe as many as 1 in 12, 1 in 13.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it can be pretty tough to get a permit.
So let me ask you this question, because I'm a visual, so I'm visualizing this hunt. Once they get the alligator, they shot the alligator. They get the alligator in the boat. Where do they go?
Well, what we ask them to do is first restrain the alligator safely.
Of course.
Regardless of whether you think it's dead or not, we recommend, taping the mouth, tie the legs together and stuff after you get them on board. And from there, they basically go home with their alligator and they dress it and prepare it to either do something with the hide, to do taxidermy with it, to consume the meat, just like any other game animal. People bring them home and properly process them.
Now, do they weigh them and measure them and all that before they?
Yeah, there is a mandatory reporting process that, for their convenience, they can do it online. We require them to report within 48 hours every alligator that they harvested. We have to have length, the sex of the alligator, which zone it came from, and we also ask for some other measurements. We get them to measure the girth of the belly and the girth of the tail, and all this type of information, gives us biological information they can use, and so we get that information almost, immediately as the season goes through, and it's been very neat that technology has allowed hunting to become this type of atmosphere where even though there's mandatory reporting, in the early days we required a check station. They had to actually take the alligator and bring it physically to the Turcotte Wildlife Center here on the reservoir and check the alligator in. And we weighed them. We had personnel waiting around the clock. That's very demanding of an agency. And so once we started looking at trying to expand the season to a statewide opportunity, we knew that providing check stations where people physically brought the alligator for an extended period of time, like 10 days, was going to be more than we could handle. And so we came up with this mandatory reporting process. Once they've submitted their report, then we issue them the tag by mail. It comes to them, and then they're able to attach that to their harvested alligator and use those numbers to document their alligators while they're in storage, and makes everything legal. And so everything basically is handled through the internet and through the mail.
Wow. All right, so how do you determine, because I've seen photos, all right, when they turn their information in, and then do you see who got the largest, heaviest alligator?
Yeah, of course, I can look at their information. I see all the data that is provided for each person in their report, but we do keep up with records. Ever since 2005, we've kept up with the records of the largest being the heaviest and the longest male and female alligators. So there's basically 4 record categories for length and weight. And so if a person, for instance, when the season opens up next Friday and they harvest an alligator, and based off the measurements that they've got on it, they believe that it's a potential record, we have a system where they call our communications center. They'll report the measurements of their alligator to the communications center. They'll in turn send an email to me that reports it to them with that hunter's contact information. I'll then contact them within 24 hours. We'll determine whether we think they have a potential record or not, and we'll have an agreement for them to meet us at a certain location, and I'll actually certify that alligator as a record or not. And as you can imagine, statewide, a lot of people catching 12-foot, 13-foot alligators, and there's a lot to go through to try to get that done. But for the most part, every year we'll usually have at least one new record in some category.
What's the largest and the heaviest to date? Do you know?
Right now, The record was broken last year with an alligator that was taken in the southwest zone down near Port Gibson. That was 14 feet and a half-inch long. I think it was a half. It was either a quarter or a half-inch, and weighed somewhere around 800 pounds. That's the current state record on public waters. We also have distinguished a different category for the private land hunters. There's an opportunity for people who own private lands to submit an application for their property to take alligators directly off of their private lands. Their regulations are a little bit different. Their season is a little bit longer. Whole different set of regulations for them, but we also keep up with records for those private land permit holders as well.
Well, I have absolutely loved this. I've learned so much. I love that. Hey, Elizabeth Greer. Good to see you on here today. I love that it's regulated, because when you have regulations, you can kind of control what's happening in our wildlife and everything that goes along with it, just like with our hunting. And like you say, I never thought of, if it was just an open field, you'd be out here at the reservoir with your kids and all of a sudden somebody shoots a gun. Mm-hmm. Well, you don't think of those things when you, I certainly don't think of those things as it being so important to be regulated by some entity. So I'm thankful that y'all do that, not just in alligator hunting and everything else, and we'll be doing other shows about that. And I have been out here, and I hope I get to ride with whoever gets a tag at least for 30 or 40 minutes, because I would really like just to see where they go, how they, what bait do they use? Because I really,
no bait.
No bait.
No bait.
You just throw
in a treble hook.
But what's on the hook?
Nothing.
Oh, see, I just learned something. Because with fish, we use worms or what have you.
Yep. You're basically casting at the alligator, trying to throw the hook past it, retrieve it back to the point that it hooks into the alligator and you retrieve it in.
That's going to take a little skill.
Yes, it does.
And a lot of muscle.
It does.
Wow. See, I didn't realize that, because I'm thinking, okay, they're going to be out there, and you just throw it. You have like a
The bait thing actually wouldn't work. I mean, these alligators are not, they don't go after bait. These are wild animals that lay in wait for some prey item to come by them. But
wow.
So it is truly a sporting experience. It's absolutely fair chase. If you don't believe it, ask some of those alligator hunters out there. There's a huge learning curve if you've never done it. Getting out there and casting off the deck of a boat in the dark at something else that's out there in the dark.
So I may just sit on the side over there, like at Tommy's, and interview a few people until they get into the boat, because it's got to be some sort of danger a little bit if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, and really and truly, and I tell everyone this, the most dangerous aspect of the alligator hunt is the people in a boat at night navigating up and down these waterways in the dark. That's the most dangerous aspect of it. Gotcha. Is the boating safety. Mm-hmm. It's way more dangerous than the aspect of actually handling the alligators, and the way that we regulate it and the way that they're allowed to harvest the alligator is much safe. And you were talking about the regulations and all that. That really has been one of the most challenging things that any wildlife agency has to deal with is when you come up with these regulations. Not only does it have to be something that is effective to protect the species that you're trying to hunt, it also has to be practical and enforceable. And that's one thing that I have prided myself on with developing our hunting season, is that the regulations that are there, every regulation that is in place has a purpose. It is not there just to make it difficult or challenging for someone to follow the rules. It's there for a purpose. Most of it has to do with safety, and it also has to do with making sure that people aren't enticed to do something that is illegal.
Right.
So it's a very neat thing. It is heavily involved. There's a lot of information to learn. That's why we have the training class that people can come to. It's about a 4-hour class. We teach them everything from basic biology of alligators, history of alligators, to all the processes, the legal equipment that can be used, how to harvest the alligator. We even teach them how to skin it, how to process the alligator.
Wow.
and report it and everything else. And then, of course, they always have ample opportunity to ask questions.
Well, that's amazing, and the whole hunt and everything that, I mean, you've gone to great lengths to prepare for everything, just about it. There's always something that may come up, but you know, if you get the tag, I wish you well. I hope you get the biggest alligator out here. I've absolutely loved learning, and I learned so much more than just as on camera, because as we're traveling through here, we have to stop because, you know, I wanted to look cute today. I cut my brother's shirt up, and because I couldn't find my hunting clothes. They're in storage right now. And ladies, back in the day, women couldn't do these things. It was a men thing. Now you ladies get to hunt and do all these things. So just know that there's great apparel out there for you. And somebody just commented on my shirt. I always cut my shirts up, so thank you for that.
Speaking of the ladies, let me say, that is one of the neatest things about this alligator hunt is when people think of hunting, it's one of those things you have to go out, you have to be extremely quiet, you have to be extremely still, and you got to smell right or contain your body smells and odors and things like that, or you can't be successful. Alligator hunting is not that way. Yeah, there's a certain amount of quietness that has to be, you know, and all that kind of stuff, and movements, but alligator hunting for the most part is a group effort. It's very much a social event for these people. It's a family event for many people.
Wow.
I know of some hunting parties that have 3 generations of the family hunting together at one time, and that has been one of the most rewarding parts of the alligator season development, is going out and watching these people enjoy things and hearing you know, kids in the boat talking about how exciting it was. And sometimes it's not the alligator, it's the wildlife that they saw while they were out here at night, things they've never seen before.
Just the experience.
And women, children, young and old alike, black, white, it doesn't matter. We have people across all spectrums involved in alligator hunting.
Well, that's awesome, and I, you know, like I said, I was raised where we didn't go into the woods, and you know, that was a man thing, and the man deer camp thing, and I know that's changed in the last 15 to 20 years. And saying that, I want to thank you for educating me, and I know you're going to probably do the rest as we, you know, scoot on and we're looking. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
I wanted everybody to see that are our viewers and what we do in the South and why we do what we do in the South, because people wonder, why do they have an alligator hunt? How do you get the tag? You know, all those questions that I have, I'm not the only one. So I'm going to transition. We have just a few minutes left. I'm going to transition into, I know this is your passion and your love, and I know this is pretty much 99% of your life as far as your career always is. But I watch you on Facebook. I watch you cook, and I watch your travel. I watch the love that you have for your family, your wife, your kids, and all those things. If there's one thing that we don't know about Ricky Flynt, what would it be?
Well, you know, for people who are close to me and know me well, probably think of me as being a little bit intense, maybe a little crusty around the edges, a little too serious sometimes, but I'm also, at the same time, always having fun. But the people who are closer to me also know that I'm a very compassionate person, and something that I have had the opportunity to do through this career a lot of times has been working with kids. And years ago, there was a organization developed by a man in Brookhaven, Mississippi, who created a foundation called Catch a Dream Foundation. And Catch a Dream Foundation was developed to provide opportunities for kids who have life-threatening diseases to go out on hunting and fishing adventures anywhere in the country, anywhere in North America for that standpoint. And Catch a Dream takes those kids. They have a request for whatever it is that they desire to do, whether it's coming alligator hunting, going and catching a fish, going on a bear hunt, hunting elk, you know, you name it. And Catch a Dream makes it happen. And I got involved with them, some through the agency. We've taken 4 or 5 kids out since 2004, kids that wanted to go out and catch an alligator. Now, we didn't take them hunting. We didn't kill an alligator, but we did take them out and let them catch an alligator kind of the same way our hunters are allowed to do. brought the alligator on board, secured the alligator, let them get pictures with it. We tagged it. We got biological measurements on it, and we allowed that kid to turn that alligator back loose. And that alligator goes into our database as so-and-so's alligator, name of the child. And so that's been very fun. And in the last 2 years, I went out on my own and got certified as a host with Catch a Dream, and that's something I do on my own in my spare time. I actually use vacation time to go out and help take these kids on these adventures. And I've been able to go now and host a couple of trips. And for me, it has been very enlightening. In fact, the last kid that I took out was a young boy who had muscular dystrophy from New Jersey. And we took him to Texas on a redfish trip. And something that was just so enlightening for me is how much we, particularly here in Mississippi, take for granted in the things that we have available to us, especially in the wildlife and in nature. And that came to realization for me as I picked them up from the airport and we were driving to our location where we're going to go fish. I heard this young boy who's about 12 years old, 13, and he was just amazed, and he was saying, Mom, look at the grass, and Mom, look, there's a Chick-fil-A, and they have a parking lot. And I'm listening to this, and it took me a minute to realize, here is a kid who has grown up in a metropolitan area all his life, and it was amazing to him just to see a fast food restaurant that had a parking lot.
Right.
It was amazing to him to be able to look out across an area, broad expanses of grass, woods, and things like that. And for him, it was a brand new adventure, something he'd never seen before. That's something I see every day. Mm-hmm. It's something all of us see every day that live in areas like this, and we take it for granted. And we were able to take him out and successfully catch some fish of a lifetime for him, and make some, lifetime dream adventures for him. And so that's very rewarding for me to be able to work with those kids, and it helps me to not take for granted this opportunity just like today to get out here and be in the outdoors.
Just kind of keeps you grounded. I love that. I love that every time I've talked with someone, they have a passion to help others and to impact their life in a way that nobody else could.
Yeah.
So is there a website that I can pop on this? Okay.
Yeah, Catch a Dream Foundation. I can't recite what the website is.
We'll put it on the description so you'll find it. So we're going to wrap this up. I want to thank Ricky so much. This has been awesome to learn about the alligator hunt. We will be back with him, seasonal things that come up. We love having Ricky on here. He's, so much about this wildlife stuff. That who else would I get as far as the alligators and the fish and all that. So we want to thank you for tuning in. And listen, we could not do this without our sponsors of this blog, which they are Burgers and Blues, Ridgeland, Mississippi. Contact Stephen Soller if you want to come out here and have a little picnic out here in this areas out here. There's picnic areas all on the trace. He will come out and cook for you and your family. Their food is amazing. Stop in and tell them we said hello. We love Stephen. Also, Village Boutique. They're having their anniversary sale coming up tomorrow. And why would I bring Village Boutique in as a sponsor? Because let me tell you something, ladies. She has some of the cutest camouflage stuff coming in. And camouflage is now used to, the women would never dare wear that stuff. And now it's so cute. There's all kinds of things on it, Mississippi State and things like that. So check them out. They're in Madison, Mississippi on the main street. And also, our sponsor is Gator Archery and Outdoors. They're located 105 Lexington Drive, Suite C in Madison, Mississippi. Their number is 790-7110. I asked Ricky, I said, Ricky, I need a shirt. Do you have a shirt? And of course, now I'm going to tell you something. This is the cutest shirts I've ever seen as far as, Mississippi State Maroon. I mean, is that, and that had to be part of it. Now I'm going to tell you, ladies, look at the back how cute this is. We want to thank Gator Archery and Outdoors for sponsoring us. Now, what I would do is I'd cut this shirt up like I have this one. You got to have a little style to it.
Yeah.
You want to be a little bit different.
Add a little personal touch to it.
Thank you so much, Ricky. You have no idea how much I appreciate this. We will be back with Ricky soon, and we'll see you around the town.